of Private Employment Agencies is represented here this morning by the chairman, Nanaban Ebu Okain IV, Esiewo Hene of Ekwapem, and Krora of Ebri Ekwapem. Nana, you're welcome.
Thank you
yes,
very
and
much.
good morning. Did I get it right this time? I was struggling to pronounce the title.
I should think so, yes.
Yes. All right, you're welcome. Perhaps you can give us a brief background into the association. I gather this is quite fleeting. It's a rather new association.
That's right.
Yes, tell us more.
About a year ago, the license agencies by the Labour Department were invited by the Select Committee of Parliament, the Economic Employment and Labour Committee of Parliament. And when we met, we went through when we met, we went through a series of discussions because they wanted to find out the problems in the sector. So after all that we discussed, it became apparent that we need to form an association and to help the authorities to sanitize the sector.
I'm sure some of the problems they refer to would be the widespread reports on human trafficking, sexual slavery, etc.
Well, human trafficking especially, yes. And we were aware some of that were going on too, yes.
Okay. I was particularly stunned when I saw the definition on human trafficking, which says a trade in humans, mostly for sexual slavery and forced labor. And then there was a part that was more worrying about the extraction of tissues and organs for surrogacy, even overt removal. You know, we see more conversant, you know, perhaps it's more common to hear about forced labor and sexual slavery. But the other part, extraction of tissues and organs, that's very grave. Does this ever come to your notice? Other reports of Ghanaians who suffer this fate when they are recruited?
No, really not to my notice to that extent. But sometimes we do hear about trafficking.
Yeah.
And inhuman treatment,
yeah,
mostly.
Yeah,
that's what we hear.
But even about the extraction of tissues and organs, you just never might hear from the victims, because I'm sure before they could tell their story.
Well, if I don't hear from them, how do I know?
Yes, yeah. Well, so that we can safely surmise that this is the case.
Well, none of those things, especially the taking of human tissues and those things, has come to the association's notice.
Okay, but what has come to your notice?
That's what I said, that trafficking, which it's becoming now in this country. It's like we have a lot of illegal companies doing this thing. They do not take into account any law, and they do their own thing. And that's where the major problem is.
I severally have heard girls, you know, recount horrible stories of their experiences, you know, when they were recruited to work elsewhere, especially in the Middle East, especially in the GCC. I recall months ago, there was an issue like this was very prevalent. In fact, it was about Ghanaian girls in Kuwait. It was so serious, the Kuwaiti government issued a temporary ban on the issuance of visas to you know, ladies recruited as house helps, you know, in that region. Do you know what has become of this? Is the ban still enforced?
I know the ban is still on, but I really do not know what it is.
Okay.
But I know it's between the two governments.
Yeah.
The government of Kuwait and government of Ghana.
Yeah. In fact, a bilateral agreement was to be signed between the two governments. Again, you wouldn't know if anything.
No, if it is gotten to that state, obviously the association will get to know it.
Yeah.
Because we are the operators, and therefore we need to put in inputs.
Yeah.
To make it worthwhile.
But Nana, you must be particularly worried about this, especially because, well, you are an association of licensed employment agencies. I gather from the Labor Act, you know, I think 2003, that for a recruitment agency to be able to do this kind of work, it must have received a license from government. It must have an agreement between Ghana and the country in question. How many of such licensed agencies do we have, at least under your umbrella?
As at now, the last list from the Labour Department was exactly 38 companies in the country. 38? Yes. But unfortunately, if you go to the Saudi embassy, as at now, they have registered close to about 140 companies.
140 from Ghana?
Close from Ghana.
And yet only 38 have licenses?
Exactly. who do receive visas from the embassy.
So what's the level of cooperation or collaboration between your association and the consulates of these countries that issue visas? Because I see a big disjoint.
We do complain.
Yeah.
But they also tells us that they deal with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
You must be worried about the
Of course, yes,
yes,
we are worried.
yes, and particularly in the 21st century where slavery is abolished. I know you don't like me to use that word, but yes, is abolished and illegal in every country in the world. And you find that in places like the Middle East, especially the GCC, because I can speak to those countries. You find that there seem to be modern forms of slavery. We hear girls who go there, to work and then are forced into sexual slavery, etc., etc. What do you make of this?
You see, it's difficult for me to speak on this issue because I am not privy to information on this. But I know in the line of the business that we do, the line of the work that we do, once a while, there is certain that happen. But the various countries has laws that deals with it. If a housemaid of someone goes to live with someone in the Middle East and is forced into any of these things that you've said, the laws in that country have to deal with the culprit.
Yes. Unfortunately, the laws in those countries don't particularly help, because I know of the kafala, which is, it's almost like a customary law, which allows people to bring in domestic workers, but puts all the power in the hands of the employer. That's why you have employers who are able to seize passports of the domestic recruits, and keep them in isolation or confinement for months.
Yes, but as we speak now, currently, I know Saudi has laws against such things. You do not have any right to seize anybody's passport. And the law in Saudi and in those countries has changed drastically of late during the last year. So most of the things that we are aware, or the public is aware that is going on, is changing. So that when someone travels to these Middle East countries, your agency here must have a licensed agency over there. It is that agency that takes the responsibility of the domestic helper, so that if there is anything, that agency in that country will have to take charge of the issue. So the contract that we are signed, we are very particular about that, the rights of the domestic helper in those countries.
Yes, but I also think that it also depends largely on whether or not the domestic helper knows what his or her rights are. I recall I've seen an airline attendant drilling, a girl who was going to some country in the Middle East, but she had no idea exactly where she was going. Do you not think that I believe the airlines reserve the right to allow whomever they want to board, but do you not think that the airlines perhaps could also help in curtailing this incidents? So that after drilling, a prospective traveler, you're not satisfied with answers forthcoming, perhaps you refuse the person to board.
You see, before the person travels, there are do's and don'ts that the agency will have to educate the traveler, the candidate who is traveling. There are do's and don'ts. In fact, that is one of the most important issues that we have to form the association. Okay. We have a code of conduct.
Okay. Can you perhaps just give us a few of the do's and don'ts?
Yes. You should be given accommodation. Reasonable accommodation that befits a human being.
That's very, very, yes. very, yes. very...
We demand that.
That's subject to interpretation, isn't it, Nana?
No,
reasonable accommodation could be lying on a mattress somewhere in the corner of a room.
You see, the agency over there is bound to inspect the place first before the domestic helper goes to live there. You see, we are here and they are there.
Yes.
And we have responsibilities here and they have responsibilities
yes.
over there. So that you also have free medical service by the, yes, you should be given food.
Now, you do realize that what you're saying now really pales in comparison to the stories, the harrowing experiences we hear from some of the girls especially.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's why laws and rules, that's why it's changing. Hitherto, there was nothing of this sort. But because of complaints and then the international rules and laws that are being made, various countries are being forced, because if you do not do it, and there are still reports, you are going to be banned from participating in this sort of business. So it is working at the moment. I can testify to that. It is working. But before the person even travels, you need to educate the candidate here in Ghana for him or her to know her rights, okay, and what is not expected of her to do. Because you see, there is an issue that it is not that only the people over there, the people they go to live with, whom we call sponsors, are the culprits. Equally, some of the house helps who travel do things that they are not supposed to do, and that sometimes do necessitate some of the actions that takes place.
Well, I don't think that whatever misbehavior or misdemeanor these girls put up there warrants the kind of punishment that's meted out to them.
Well, that's subject to your own judgment.
Well,
really.
it is.
Yes.
I agree.
That is a bit subjective. Yes.
Nana, thank you. I have to wrap up, but so quickly, as an association, what are you doing to curb this trend?
We intend to embark on vigorous education to the public,
Yeah.
to the Ghanaian public.
Yes.
So that if you intend to travel,
Yeah.
there are certain things that we want you to look for.
Yeah.
First and foremost, go to a licensed operator. And the licensed operator do ask for the license that's being given by the Department of Labor. All right? And then that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And when you get in there, at least they will take you through the various processes, the legal processes, that when you arrive there, you are going to be safe.
Yeah. I think you have a Herculean task cut for you.
I cannot hold brief for those of the illegals.
Yes.
Because really, we have experiences with them that we want the authorities to begin to really
I
check.
think there's a huge task ahead.
is.
Yes.
It
Considering look at the astronomically high number of unregistered or unlicensed recruitment agencies working with these consulates, as against the 38 that are licensed in Ghana by the Ghana government. Thank you, Nana. You should come again, please. Yes, Chairman, Ghana Association of Private Employment Agencies, Nana Ba Ebu Okai the Fourth, Osie Wohene of Ikwapem and Kura of Ebri Ikwapem. Thank you so much.